Today, I wanted to come on and talk about me and my decision to engage in a semi-nude picture shoot, photo shoot, sorry, not picture shoot, but a lot of people seem to have this opinion about me, my persona, that whatever I do is for attention. And I always think this opinion is hilarious because it reveals more about the people that have that opinion than myself. Um, in everyone's life, there comes an age and stage where they must really reckon with themselves and question why they were born and who it is that they're living for and what their decisions are based out of. And I felt that a lot of my decisions were being shaped by that age-old question of me feeling like am I doing too much? Am I too much? And I was always compensating in every area of life because I felt that I shouldn't take up space, that I don't belong here. And this is a mindset that was encouraged not only in my home from my mother, who learned to feel that way about herself, but in my extended family and the communities that I interacted with. I don't think that it's just about the body, you know? It it's such a convenient way to weaponize a woman's body against her that if she takes on the agency to actually show her own skin in a consenting way, then people can always say, you should be more than your body. You should have more depth. Um, at the same time, those very same people will be like, but what are you actually about? Oh, if you're meant to be religious or spiritual, why do you dress like that? Why are you like that? Why are you dancing like that? And the ones who don't ask me the question pointedly will often go behind my back and speak about it. Like, okay, so well, here it is from the horse's mouth. Did I do it for attention? Did I do it to be rebellious? Did I do it to did I do it to prove something about my own attractiveness? I don't know. You know, mm, there's a lot of misconstruals in the way of people having more opinions about my body than me, and people feeling more reactionary about my body and what goes on my body than me, and people choosing not to engage with me, but to engage in gossip about me when I haven't done that to people. When I've been merciful and graceful enough that if a person was having a conversation with me, regardless of how they were dressed, I would be able to give them pointers about themselves, about their characters. And they were just fixating on the idea of me that they wanted to create in their head. These sort of stories are not easy to tell. They're painful and they're extremely complicated. I mean, they're as old as time itself, but they're also extremely complicated because people are not linear. They don't behave in the way that you would expect. There's a lot of shadow and undercurrents that go on and form their final behaviors. And the surface and mask could be a certain way, but what's going on underneath is completely different. Most people are split into two, the side of themselves that they can't show anyone and the face that they keep on for everyday interactions. And it's making us also unhealthy. I'm not saying that we should be like rogue, but I'm just saying that we should just be aware of what's going on inside ourselves. When I was very young, I was in a relationship and it was a consensual relationship. But as people do, um, as people of that age are curious and driven to do, they want to experiment with self-expression. They want to experiment with intimacy and closeness, right? And I would enjoy being aesthetically appreciated a certain way um, by by the person I was in a relationship with. It was consensual. But what wasn't consensual was this person's need to then engage in interactions with their friendship circle behind my back where they had to use me as currency. So it wasn't enough that they would use me with them physically when we were out together as a currency of, oh, this is my girlfriend. Isn't she attractive? Didn't I score a win? He also had to score a win behind my back, without my consent, without me being informed, in order to feel validated by uh, boys and men that I honestly found very creepy and I tolerated because I didn't have the space to express my discomfort and because men often lack the emotional maturity to protect the very women that they insist they're crazy about. So when this ex of mine would talk about finding me attractive and like gush over me, part of me used to be a little bit disgusted because somewhere I was fighting the realization that this was happening. I was dealing with a lot at the time and I couldn't really process it. And of course, I was being gaslit and denials were being used left, right, and center so that I wouldn't walk away, so that I would emotionally be hostage to this person. And of course, their image was carefully managed, where they were a certain way in front of my friends. In private with me, they were emotional at a certain different level with a different kind of immaturity that bordered on abusive. And so this photo shoot came after years of me denying to myself that didn't really happen. He said it didn't happen, so it mustn't have happened, right? People wouldn't, he wouldn't show anybody. And this was a constant dialogue in my head. And then I finally made my peace with it. Because who would I tell? My family, my mother would get hysterical. She had no boundaries. She would always tell her own family, and her own family always talks about honor, not about emotional intelligence, not about my needs, not once. In fact, in my own family, I was objectified at my father's own funeral. So I had no hopes. I had no hope of being treated as a human being. I was subhuman. And at the time that I decided to get this photo shoot done, I was like, it's nothing that people haven't seen. They've looked at me behind my back without my consent, and they probably passed opinions about me. A person that claimed to love me has taken my image and reduced me to an object. And it's already been done. The most I can do is reclaim the narrative, right? So that's one of the things that happened to me. Another thing that always had happened to me, and it was very buried in my consciousness, was that as a child, I'd suffered the kind of pain and turbulence that a child should never have to undergo.